Good evening. This is Karen Hudis. I'm something called the Overseer Mandate Trustee of the Global Debt Facility. That's a big mouthful. What I'm actually doing is I'm the lawyer for the world's gold, and I'm following in the footsteps of Ferdinand Marcos, who was also the lawyer for the world's gold, and he set up the World Bank so that we would have a peaceful transition. And I'm going to call this video today Turning Point because that's where we are. We're at a turning point. And the reason I'm talking to you is because I'm supposed to do this. Why am I supposed to do this? It's because you've been lied to your entire life, and I'm one of the people, I'm just one of many, who understands that they've been lied to in a very fundamental way. We're not just talking about all of the newspapers and the magazines, we're talking about the universities, we're talking about the world's governments. And I got into this situation because I used to work in the legal department of the World Bank for about 21 years, and I'm still actually working there because I was put back after all this corruption. And of course, most people, when they look at the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, they see that it's also dominated by the bankers. And that's just the secretariat. The way the World Bank was set up, it's supposed to be run by the world's people. It's a co-op. And the world's people, it's not the governments, because the governments are all corrupt too. And I was working many years as a lawyer, a regular lawyer, and I thought that the US government was a real government. I didn't understand that it's actually all a mirage. You know how Shakespeare says all the world's a stage? He's absolutely right, because nothing is as it appears. And there are enough people now that understand that we've got this big problem of corruption, and the number of people, it's grown enough so that we're now at a turning point. The way reality works is that if enough people believe something, then that shifts the reality. And when you say enough people, that means we've reached critical mass. And some Japanese scientists discovered this when they were studying monkeys, because monkeys, I guess, are enough similar to human beings that they also reached a critical mass. These monkeys that the Japanese scientists were studying, they learned how to wash sweet potatoes to get the sand off. And after there were enough monkeys, we don't know exactly how many, people call this the 100 monkey effect, but what happened was all the monkeys of that breed, even the ones on islands that couldn't be taught by the first monkeys that the Japanese were studying, were also washing their sweet potatoes to get the sand off. So that means actually that when people think, they think in something called the collective unconscious. And there are very clever scientists who have learned how to use people's brains to make them think that they're actually thinking, because we're all interconnected. And what's happened is enough of us understand that we're actually being hacked, and that when we think we're thinking something, it's actually mind control. Now, that's a very long-winded introduction, but what I'm basically trying to tell you is that some of us are for real, and enough of us understand that reality is very different from some very powerful people. They're mostly bankers that have been printing paper money, and buying real things with it. And that's the way the corruption is spreading. And now we're not letting that happen. And there were some people who understood this corruption many, many years ago. One of them was Ferdinand Marcos, and another was Jose Rizal. And what they did was they set up the World Bank, and they said that after 50 years, the world's gold was going to come out of hiding. And with that 50-year period has passed, and now enough of us are following in the footsteps of Ferdinand Marcos and Jose Rizal. And we're in reality, and the corrupt bankers who have been lying to you, we know they're corrupt, and we know that there are a lot of lies. And when I said we've reached a turning point, we've had enough people that understand what the critical mass is, and we understand what reality is. And the bankers, the ones that have been printing paper currency, they understand that they're bankrupt because we have got the world's wealth. We've got the world's gold, we've got the world's platinum, we've got the world's silver. It was all put in a trust called the Global Debt Facility, and I'm the lawyer for that trust. And so when people are all united and we share a collective unconscious, that means that the bankers, they can't get around it because we're all united. And so many people are worrying because they think that the bankers are so powerful that they're going to do terrible things. They think the bankers are in control, but they're not, because as I've mentioned, we're all united. And if enough of us know what the actual reality is, these corrupt people, they're going to have to toe the line. We're actually the ones that are deciding things. And that's where we are. And I'm here to tell you that, but I'm just a human being along with everybody else. But I'm working together with other human beings that actually know a lot more than me, that are better at a lot of things than I am. And the important thing is that I realize that it's not me that's calling the shots. It's all of humanity that's united. Now, I've been speaking to some very wise people that are telling me what the next steps are, because as I've mentioned, if I think I'm the one calling the shots, nobody's going to accept it, because it's not up to me, it's up to all of us, because we're all united. And so I'll tell you about a conversation I had yesterday with one of these very helpful people. And two of these people are actually people who had what is called near-death experiences, where they miraculously survived, although some people thought that they were no longer alive, but they came back. And these people, there are a number of people, there are organizations of these people, and they're very special people because they realize a lot of things from the other side, because we have immortal souls. And I've been telling you this for a long time. Once we realize that we have immortal souls, we're very different people. Now, I didn't actually die. At least I don't think I died, but you never know. But I did have a near-death experience when I was 20, and I went up a spiral, which is one of the characteristics when people have a near-death experience. And I went up a spiral, and I saw Jesus Christ on a throne. Now, I'm Jewish, you know, and that was a big adjustment to make, but this happened, this near-death experience happened when I was in my 20s, and I didn't know what to do with it. But when I was in my early 30s, I thought, well, Jesus Christ is Jesus Christ. And so I went and I sang in the Lutheran choir for 10 years. And, well, I've mentioned this because many Jews understand that Jesus Christ was Jewish. It's all a big mixture. And of course, there are many other world religions. There's Buddhism. One of my close friends when I worked in the World Bank, and I've told you I work in the World Bank still, because the World Bank is the place where the world's wealth is deposited. Anyway, one of my good friends, Bashir, his father was a Sufi, I say priest, but the Sufis are not priests. But anyway, he was a holy person. And Bashir was run over by, he rode a motorcycle and he was run over by a truck. And he died, or he had a near-death experience, but he came back and he had a choice at that point. His choice was he had a young son and he didn't want to leave this young son without, he was divorced, without a parent. So he felt he had to come back, and he was given the choice, and he came back, and then we became good friends in the World Bank, and he told me about this experience. So anyway, I know that there are people who are on the other side and then come back somehow in this world. And so I was speaking, two of the people that I work with very closely advised me about what our next steps are. And I had a conversation with one of these people yesterday, and I said, you know, one of the dangers, I'm not in danger of accepting bribes because I realize that money is not the most important thing in the world. Love is the most important thing. But anyway, so, you know how they were trying to bribe me? They were trying to say, well, you've already gotten an immortal soul, and you can just be on the other side now. You don't have to stay on this side and do all the work. So that was, I thought about it. And then I realized, I love my family. I love my children. I don't want to be on the other side. If I could possibly be here, I want to be here. And I also have an important job to do, which is I'm one of humanity. But who's on the other side? They're also humans. Jose Rizal is there. So is Ferdinand Marcos. And the people that are helping us the most, it's not the military powers. It's the ones that are not on the earth, but they're part of humanity. Because when you have an immortal soul, you're still there. You're still participating. And these people, our ancestors, they're helping us because they want us to be in a different kind of world. And that's where we are. We're in transition. And nobody can take away that fact. Not the rich people who they want to be rich. They think that's more important. They're actually not evolved. I've told you about a very important book that was written by my doctor, Charles Gant. It's about how people think. And because we're now in the scientific world where we can see how the brain functions, you can see which people are using which part of their brain. And there's a very important part called the the frontal cortex. And that's the part of the brain that watches the other parts. And so we can actually monitor. We can see who's using which part of their brain. And the ones that are the most evolved are using all four of their brains. And the ones that are the least evolved, they're just using their rudimentary brain. These poor people haven't learned yet how to think. They haven't learned that the most important thing is not their status, it's not their money, it's loving each other, it's being empathetic. And so when you use the brain imaging, you can see if this is the person who's using their brain, or if they're stuck. They don't know how to use their brain. They don't know how to think. And the people that are causing the biggest grief, they're the ones We've got to show them because we're all united. That we're not going to give up on them. They also have immortal souls. We just have to teach them. So when people say, well, when are we going to get on with living in a better world? We're now at a stage where enough of us know, enough of us are using our entire brain. That's the critical mass. And we're all united. So these people, they have no choice. And what's going on with the COVID crisis, that's these people that are not fully evolved, that are using pieces of their brain, and they think that they can get away with it. But humanity is all united. So they're going to have to come to grips with reality, which is where we are. We've now gotten into a different reality. And I'll explain to you how we happen to get in that better reality. It's also because there's enough critical mass, but it's because we've learned enough. I won't use the word reincarnation because it doesn't work that way. I can't really explain how it works. It's all very, we all have to work together to understand how these things work. But in any event, we deserve to be in a different kind of reality where most of us are going to be using our entire brains. And it's irrevocable because, as I said, we're all united and things got set up. There were enough very smart people who organized the World Bank. And as I've explained, it's not the World Bank that the countries are members of. It's the World Bank, which is a world cooperative. And the way it's set up, and I've explained to you, I'm a lawyer. So the way it's set up is that the president of the World Bank and the managing director of the International Monetary Fund have got to take orders from us. Us. We're the ones in charge. And so we've evolved. We've evolved to a position where our reality is different from the ones that aren't using their full brains. And they have no choice. And it may take them a while before they realize that it's irrevocable. It's irrevocable. And so I was explaining to you how I was talking to one of these people who happened to be dead and then came back. And what she told me was that there is this danger that I get bribed by thinking that I can die and just leave everybody in the lurch, and that I shouldn't do that. And the way to make sure that I don't do that is that I don't get this idea in my mind that I can order people around. I can't order people around. Everybody counts. Everybody counts. They count as much as the other. And if I don't realize that, I'm not doing my job. And I've learned. I've been taught on the job. You've seen me struggling through the years. I've been on DC TV now for 5 years. And what I did in the very beginning was, in the very beginning, I just spoke to people. But then I thought I have to show people. I have to give people proof. And so I was reading from a teleprompter. And that wasn't working very well because I wasn't communicating. And as I said, the most important thing is love. And my job is not to tell people what I think. My job is to love people and to have them love me back, and for us all to join together in that. And that's the most important thing. So I need to let you know who I am and what's going on. And I need to reassure you because, as I said, we've now gotten into a situation where some of the governments that are not real governments, they're not. The constitutions are not in effect. The politicians are pretending that they're governments, but they're really not. And so Donald Trump, he's pretending that he's the president of the United States. That can't be. It can't be because we don't have a constitution in effect. The bankers suspended the Constitution in 1871. The federal government went into bankruptcy in 1933. So there was no federal government after that. And I've been explaining things, giving people proof, and let's be honest, it's not because I'm smart and I figured these things out. It's because other people figured them out and we're all working together. So one of the people who figured these things out, he finally he got tired and he didn't like all of the punishment that he was receiving. But before that, he told me about the oath of office and the military oath. And what he said was that you can tell if somebody is following the military oath, which means that they have to support the Constitution. Now, if the Constitution is out of effect, then these brass people, the people in the Joint Chiefs of Staff, they've broken their military oath. And so one of the ways that we know that they've broken their military oath is because there's yellow fringe around the flag. That means we're in a military government. Oh dear, I thought I turned my cell phone off. I didn't. Well, shall we just cut then?
Yeah.
Okay.